Hello and welcome, I'm Ruby Barlow and you are watching The World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the headlines of this hour. Israeli army spokesman Efi Defrin has stated that the IDF has carried out approximately 3,400 strikes across Iran and disabled more than 150 Iranian defense systems. US President Donald Trump addressed the United Kingdom and Prime Minister Keir Starmer directly on social media, saying that they don't need people to join after the war has already been won. US President Donald Trump has blamed Iran for the school bombing that claimed 175 lives on the first day of active hostilities between Iran and the USA. China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi has slammed the US-Israel strikes on Iran, saying that the war in the Middle East should never have happened in the first place. US President Trump was there to witness the return of the bodies of 6 American soldiers killed in the Iran campaign. The soldiers were killed after a drone struck a US military base in Kuwait. Caitlin Kalinowski, head of robotics and consumer hardware at OpenAI, has announced her resignation, citing concerns about the company's agreement with the Department of Defense. According to the Egyptian presidency, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi and Cypriot President Nikos Christodoulidis held a phone call urging efforts to contain regional military escalation, stressing the need for peaceful solutions while urging implementation of the second phase of the Gaza ceasefire agreement. According to joint statements, Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi and Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney have agreed in Tokyo to launch a new economic security dialogue and cyber policy consultative body as they expand cooperation. The two leaders also pledged to expand joint military exercises and defence cooperation. And now to our top story. Israeli strikes on Lebanon have killed at least 394 people over the past week, including 83 children, 42 women and 9 rescue workers, the health minister said. He condemned attacks on medical teams and ambulances. Rescue teams continue to search for survivors amid the devastation. Listen in.
عندنا 394 شهيد إلى الآن، بينهم للأسف 83 طفل وبينهم 42 سيدة. الجرحى 1130 جريح، بينهم 254 طفل و274 سيدة. الأرقام تحكي هولي عوائل مستهدفة، مدنيين مستهدفين، أطفال وسيدات، وليس الاستهداف كما يدعون لعسكر ولمنشآت عسكرية. يستهدفون البيوت ويستهدفون المسعفين ويستهدفون القطاع الصحي والسيدات.
Meanwhile, more than 100 Iranians, including diplomats and embassy staff, were evacuated from Beirut overnight on a Russian plane, according to a Lebanese official. The evacuation follows Lebanon's recent ban on activities by Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps, a key backer of Hezbollah, amid escalating tensions in the region. Joining us live, we have retired Major General A.K. Siwach, who is a geostrategic expert, joining us now from New Delhi. Thank you so much for joining us on our show, Major General. Are you surprised to hear about the evacuation of the Iranians from Lebanon on Russian planes, given that we haven't seen much material support from Russia to Iran so far?
Absolutely. See, as far as this war is concerned, Iran is fighting a lone battle because there is not much support which is coming from any place. As far as Russia and China are concerned, no denying the fact that they have given material support to Iran before the war has started. They have given them drones, they have given them missiles, they have also given them, in fact, including a certain ammunition. And however, after the war has started off, they are not able to give any support. Only thing they are able to give now is the real-time intelligence. The reason is very simple. As far as Russia is concerned, they are involved in Russia-Ukraine war. and as far as China is concerned, their focus is more toward Taiwan. So Iran is fighting a lone battle. Now, what is happening in Lebanon is a very different situation which is occurring. You see, Lebanon, the southern portion of Lebanon, where Hezbollah is still very active, they are attacking the Israel, and they have already said Hezbollah before the war started off that in case the US attacked Iran, then they are going to support Iran, and it's not only Hezbollah, even the Houthi rebel, and they did the same thing. They have sort of fired a lot of rocket missile toward Israel, and they were also doing some ground operation. So to counter that, Israel has now not only that it has countered it by striking on the key locations of Hezbollah in Lebanon, but they have also carried out a ground operation to push the Hezbollah toward north. So that is what it has happened. Now, one thing is very clear, that Hezbollah is not very popular even in Lebanon. Lebanon is feeling it that Hezbollah is creating a problem for them, and it is impacting their governance. Today, Hezbollah is the weakest, and that's how they can dictate their term as far as Hezbollah is concerned. But now, when the strike was going on of Israel, there was a fear that the Iranians who were there, they may also come under attack there, and so is the Russians. So Russian aeroplane has taken off, evacuated the Iranians as well as the Russians from Lebanon. That is a normal way of evacuating, because they are feeling they are in the war zone. But otherwise, I don't find any support which is coming to Iran, especially from Russia and China, because what USA has done is, USA has made sure that even the shadow fleet will not able to reach Iran, and Iran is completely isolated, is fighting a lone battle.
Are you surprised that we see this coordination here? Perhaps could there be things happening behind the scenes that we're not aware of? Intelligence sharing between Russia and Iran, or perhaps supplies being shared. Of course, they've lost this essential link there, but there's also the aspect there that the reduction in oil coming out of the Gulf is also a net positive for Russia, as well as they need to sell their own oil to fund the war in Ukraine.
No, as far as intelligence is concerned, real-time intelligence is being shared by China and Russia. In fact, Russia is giving them a pinpointed information about the ships of US, and also able to tell the military installations of US as well as Israel to Iran. But nothing more than that. I don't think any other support is coming from these countries, because there is sort of a cauldron which has been put by America, and it's very difficult, including you find what is happening is any shadow fleet coming, they will target. Remember what has happened, one ship which was coming from Indian after participating on international fleet review, the RS Dana, it was then hit very close to Sri Lankan waters, in international water. So I don't think by ship they are able to send any material as on today. However, they are giving information, intelligence, nothing more than that. But they will, if there is a possibility, they will help it. But as far as this, Strait of Hormuz which has been blocked, which are affecting the economy of the complete world, because the 20% oil goes from there, and 60% of China oil also goes there. China is also adversely affected on this. And of course, when Strait of Hormuz is blocked, indirectly it also benefits Russia, because Russia wants to remain active in the Russia-Ukraine war. It wants money. India was buying its oil almost about 40% of our requirement. China is also buying, it's about 25 to 30% of its requirement. But pressure was put on India because there was a 50% tariff, 25% penalty tariff. So we have reduced to 20%. Now US has given that relaxation for 1 year. 1 month. We can now purchase more oil. So we are going to purchase almost 40% of oil. So it will affect positively the economy of Russia, because in case if the oil not going to come from the Middle East and the Russian market are being explored by the world over, it will be beneficial to Russia. But China is the one which was having maximum oil from Iran, almost 60% from there, that will be adversely affected.
Major General, please stay with us as we move to our next story. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian says the US and Israel want to create divisions among Islamic countries as the Middle East war enters week 2. Pezeshkian warned that Iran will respond forcefully to any attacks while urging unity among Islamic nations to avoid enemies exploiting internal differences. He condemned US and Israeli strikes killing innocent children in Gaza and promised Iran will not bow to aggression. Let's listen in.
دشمن دلش میخواد ما و کشورهای اسلامی در جنگ باشیم، اختلاف بین ما و کشورها ایجاد بکنه. بارها و بارها گفتیم و نیت و هدف مقام معظم رهبری این بوده ما با کشورهای همسایه خودمون برادریم، باید ارتباطاتمون خوب باشه. اما اتفاقی که داره رخ میده اینه که از هر کشوری بخوان به خاک ما حمله کنن و تجاوز کنن، طبیعتاً ما مجبوریم جواب اونها رو بدیم. و این چیزی رو که میخوایم جوابشون رو بدیم معنیش این نیست که ما با او کشور دعوا داریم، معنیش این نیست که ما خدای نکرده میخوایم مردم اونجا رو ناراحت بکنیم. اگر ما با هم اختلاف داریم باید خودمون بین خودمون حل کنیم، اجازه ندیم اونها باعث بشن که این اختلافات به نیات شوم خودشون برسن و این امکان پذیر نخواهد بود. آمریکا و اسرائیلی که بی هیچ واهمه‌ای 168 کودک بیگناه رو میکشن شرم نمیکنن. از اینکه در غزه 50-60 هزار انسان رو قتل عام میکنن شرم نمیکنن. اون وقت دلشون میخواد بگه ما در ایران میخوایم آدم بکشیم، ما به کسانی که به کشور ما حمله کنن با قدرت ایستادیم، با قدرت پاسخ خواهیم داد.
Now joining us live we have our guest Martin Sa Reyes, who is an international affairs expert joining us from Ecuador. Martin, thank you so much for joining us today on the show. Of course, the Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian has brought up one of the factors that's playing into this conflict, which is the sectarianism, but perhaps the diversity of the region. He's said that the Islamic countries should not let themselves be divided. Of course, in this region, there is a massive variety of religions, ethnicities, political persuasions, of course. Now, turning to Iran, could we see a form of sectarianism in a power struggle if we have this eventual case of the Islamic regime becoming dismantled?
Well, first of all, the Middle East has been a very diverse and at the same time problematic area for hundreds of years. Iran has been the Shia Islamic force in the Middle East, and they have been always fighting because of ideological and religious difference between the Sunni and the Shia Islam. But this difference became more relevant with the Cold War. The Sunni Gulf countries allying with the US and Iran allying with Russia right now, they are taking this difference in order to blame Israel for all of the problems of the Middle East. Obviously, Israel wants to have is more in alliance with the Sunni US-backed countries. Of course, that's obvious, but it's not that Israel is in a project of dismantling the Middle East or making each one fighting with each other. Basically, Iran has been the country that has been influencing the minorities in Sunni countries in order to carry out terror attacks against the population. So basically, the president of Iran is just using this historical fact in order to make Israel seem to be a pariah state, which is not the case.
And to the case of the day after in the the finish of this war. Do you think if we do see the dismantlement of the Islamic regime, if they do lose their power, as has been speculated by the governments of Israel and the United States, could we see a sectarian power struggle similar to what we saw after Iraq? Of course, there is in both cases ethnic diversity, religious diversity. What's your thoughts on that?
Of course, I think after the Islamic regime falls, it will be very difficult to unite the people in Iran. We need to know that Iran right now, most of the people actually are anti-regime, but it doesn't mean that 100%, like 99% of the population is going to be happy with a new Western ally regime. The extremist Shia Muslim population will still be very relevant, and they will make struggles. I see in a future like small militias coming out of this clash between civilizations, Western secular Iranians supporting the new Western ally regime, or in the case that the Reza Pahlavi becomes the leader of Iran, or another leader. I see the small minority basically clashing with the secular majority, carrying out terror attacks and posing opposition to the population. So you're right, it will be very difficult to unite the Iranian people.
Mm-hmm. Martin, please stay with us as we move to our next update. US President Donald Trump praised Scott Presler for discussing the use of the filibuster to pass the Save America Act, which Trump said is supported by 88% of voters. This breaking news has come after Trump posted on Truth Social insisting that the bill must pass immediately, take priority over all other legislation, and include voter ID and proof of citizenship. He added mail-in ballots should be restricted to the military, illness, disability, or travel, and stressed no men in women's sports or gender procedures for children. Trump warned lawmakers not to pass a watered-down version and urged them to act now. Iranian Security Chief Ali Larijani said Iranians remain united despite internal disagreements, adding that US President Donald Trump has failed to incite the people to topple Iran's leadership amid the 9th day of the US-Israeli assault. Larijani emphasized that Iranians stand by their country and will not cooperate with foreign pressure. Meanwhile, Iranian media reported that the clerical body responsible for choosing Iran's next supreme leader could meet soon to appoint a successor to the slain Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, with a majority consensus reportedly reached. Israeli forces expanded overnight strikes on fuel depots near Tehran, while Bahrain said an Iranian attack damaged a desalination plant, signaling a widening assault on regional infrastructure. Trump has reiterated that he is not interested in negotiating an end to the conflict that is driving energy prices higher and disrupting global travel. Let's listen into what Secretary of the Supreme National Security Council of Iran, Ali Larijani, had to say.
امروز دیدم آقای ترامپ تهدید کرده که ما بعضی از مردم و بخش‌هایی از مردم رو که در این قضایا هنوز ضربه نخوردن اینا رو هدف قرار میدیم. چرا؟ چون هر چی ایشون تلاش کرد مردم پاسخی به او بدن ندادن. حتی تهدید کرد. گفت شماهای بعضیاتون که به ما پیغام داده بودین که اگر ما حمله بکنیم به ما میپیوندید، اگر به ما تو این شرایط نیاید ما لوتون میدیم. این نمیفهمه. بابا ایرانی ها ممکنه با هم اختلاف داشته باشن، اما ایرانی هن. اینا پای ایران ایستادن، پای تجزیه ایران با شما همکاری نمیکنن. ضمن اینکه اینا تجربه دخالت شما تو منطقه رو دیدن. شما دخالت کردید در عراق، چه بلایی به سر مردم عراق بود؟ دخالت کردید در افغانستان، اینا جلوی چشم مردمه. شما دلسوز مردم نیستید.
Now, back to you, Major General Siwach. Are we seeing these attacks on desalination plants as a new type of targeting by the Iranian regime? Of course, desalination plants are essential infrastructure for the Gulf states as they are water scarce, but they also do not have a massive, perhaps, casualty rate as they are essentially infrastructure. They're also not US Army bases. And Pezeshkian has made comments in recent days that he apologised to those states for those attacks. So is this a new type of targeting where it's neither US Army bases but also neither an attack that could cause civilian casualties, perhaps a in between?
Very correct. You see, why has the Iran picked up hitting the Middle East countries? You know, it wanted to hit all US bases in Middle East for 3 reasons. One is that it wants to now punish all these countries which had given a military basis to US, want to send a message to them that if you have given bases to US, today you are the most vulnerable. In fact, most of these countries have given bases to give a protection. But today, US has become liability for them because attacks are coming of Iran on these bases, and the collateral damage is taking place in these countries. Now, second thing was that they were closest to Iran, surprise factor there. Third thing was the air defense system was not as good as what it was in Israel. Here it is only THAAD and Patriot system. There it is much robust multi-layered system. Now, by hitting the infrastructure of these areas, it is now basically putting pressure on these countries to put pressure on US to stop the war. What they are doing is, Iran is done, is that it has basically hit the oil infrastructure, whether it is the oil depots or their production capability of oil as well as gas, especially in Qatar. At the same time, a desalination plant which is there, because there is a scarcity of water there, and majority of these countries have taking out the water from outside, almost 70 to 80% of the requirement. So if these desalination plants are hit, now imagine what will be the impact of this. Water is in fact much more precious than oil in Middle East now. So therefore, what Iran is doing is a multi-pronged strategy. One is it has blocked Strait of Hormuz so that the oil cannot flow from here and their business come to halt. Second thing is it is hitting the manufacturing capability of the Middle East, whether it is gas, oil. Third thing is hitting the desalination plants where there will be a scarcity of water. So overall, it is putting a tremendous pressure on these countries so that they in turn put pressure on US to stop the war. So this is the strategy which is adopted by Iran so far. Though the president of Iran, Masoud Pezeshkian, has said they will not attack on these countries unless the military bases from these countries attack Iran. But I don't think it's happening this way. Still, Iran is attacking in certain places of Middle East where the bases are there of the US. Where this war will go, time will only tell. But this is a strategy which possibly Iran has adopted to make sure that these Middle East countries are on their edge and they push US to stop the war.
Major General, thank you so much for joining us today on the show. It has been a pleasure to hear your thoughts. Now to our next story. The United Arab Emirates Defense Ministry said the death toll from Iran's recent missile and drone attacks on the Gulf state has risen to 4. This comes as the attacks, which have been ongoing since late February as part of the broader war in the Middle East, which have seen hundreds of ballistic missiles, drones and cruise missiles launched toward the UAE. Joining us again, we have Martin Saeraez. Now, Martin, the UAE has previously to the war, had a reputation as a safe country, a bit of a lifestyle and tourism destinations for Western expatriates. Of course, now we see the death toll reaching 4 deaths. How do you think that this war has impacted the UAE's economy, the economy and reputation of the Gulf states, and how do you think that they will deal with this going forward?
I think it was an absolutely great surprise for the world and for the United Arab Emirates. It used to be one of the safest and most luxurious places in the world. It's still, But now with this attack, this international view of being like the perfect place for millionaire tourists is being taken in consideration. Now people are actually thinking about how these dynamics of the geopolitical stage of the world can affect this type of countries. These countries, even though they have been very successful with their oil production and their allyship with the US, it also comes with their cons, and the cons are having American military bases on their territory that makes them major targets for terror attacks from the Iranian regime. And that's something that was always there. This danger was always there, but it was never carried out, and it was never on practice. It was on theory. Now we're seeing that this theory has become the reality of the Middle East, and that there is no safe place in the Middle East because of the current situation and the threat of an Iranian retaliation.
Mm-hmm. Martin, thank you so much for joining us today on the show. Now to our next story. Cyprus's Foreign Minister Konstantinos Kombos has confirmed that the Iranian-made drone that struck a British airbase on the island was launched from Lebanon. The drone crashed into the facility late Sunday, and less than 12 hours later, 2 other combat drones were intercepted off Cyprus, also launched from Lebanon, about 150 miles east of the island. Kombos warned authorities must remain vigilant, saying all threats from the northeast must be considered. He stressed the need for full coverage to counter any future attacks. And that's all we have time for. Please keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.